Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. We're filming this on Wednesday. I hope it's July the 10th. The first part of Citizens Forum is always the Walter and Jack Show. This week, Richard Atwell is joining us. We're going to be talking about sewage treatment. Richard is with stopabadplan.ca. So, Richard, maybe you can start off by giving us kind of the big picture of what is happening with sewage treatment right now here in the CRD.
What's happening to us is we're being mandated to do something, and there's no backing behind it. It's just simply an order from government that says do it, just like the slogan.
And this order is coming from the federal government?
Well, originally came from the provincial government, and there's been a follow-on regulation that came from the federal government. The federal regulation is actually based in some numbers. It actually says you've got so much sewage effluent and it's got to be dealt with in a certain way. The provincial regulations, which also were numbers-based, were just thrown out the window by the previous Minister of Environment, Barry Penner, and he just said, do it.
Okay, so under the federal ruling, which seems to be, because I heard the provincial government speaking today, and they said, we have to do it, the federal government is making us. Under the federal government ruling, because we're really a low-risk area, this can all be delayed for another 20 years, right?
Well, yeah, there's a couple issues there. So, so like you say, well, first of all, we really should have been classified as a low risk. I mean, based on what can be observed, and they have these three categories: low risk, medium risk, and high risk, and they're tied to these dates: 2020, 2030, 2040. If you were classified as low risk, you would have until 2040 to upgrade the current system that you have.
And we are low risk.
We are. When you look out there, and you look at the reports that the CRD has, the marine monitoring they do, we're low risk.
Okay, so the whole thing is crazy in this way from the get-go.
Exactly. Now, as far as I've always understood, the provincial minister of environment, through a cooperation agreement with the federal government, could ask the federal minister for an exemption, for an agreement to make some changes to the federal regulation.
Okay, so this is very important.
Yeah.
The provincial government can ask for a delay.
As far as I know.
Okay. And probably our municipal governments and the CRD could ask the provincial government for a delay.
Yes, they could, but they never have. They've
Why
never
not?
been willing to do that.
But
they've just been...
So what do the people of this city want, do you think? In your biased opinion, of course.
At this point in time, what I hear from most people is that they want the CRD to go back to the drawing board and start again.
I also think that's what most people want.
Well, the thing is, we touched on just very briefly, and that is that the CRD seems to be unaccountable on this issue. Nobody ran for office on this issue. There's no mandate to build a sewage treatment plant. Of course, the CRD, because of its convoluted nature of sometimes the CRD members are appointed, sometimes they're elected, that there's no way for the public really to, it's not accessible to the public. There's no way for us to say, okay, this is how we want you to proceed. They haven't really gone to us to ask us that question.
You know what? It's even worse than that, because, for example, I live in Victoria right now. As far as I know, all four, is it 3 or 4 Victoria reps?
4.
Okay, all 4 Victoria reps consistently have voted for this whole bad plan from the word go. Am I right or wrong on that?
Pretty much.
Okay, and there's never any criticism. There's no criticism of them in the media, but are they representing the wish? Do all the people of Victoria want this bad plan to go ahead? I don't think so. And yet, all 4 of our city council reps, for some strange reason. So, you begin to ask, what is the pressure to make this happen? And you wanted to talk about failure of democracy. Maybe that's...
Well, there's a lot of buck passing going on, right? The CRD says the province is making us do it. The province will point to the federal government. The federal government then points back to the CRD. The province saying, these bodies are the bodies you have to deal with. I've dealt with MLAs and MMPs, and they've basically said the same thing. This is in our area. After you've gone through all 3 of those groups, you're left wondering, who is it that represents you at all, right? Yeah. And so, when you look at the project and you say, look, it's got flaws, it's got serious deficiencies, and you want them to address it at the CRD level, it's the equivalent of a little kid lighting the carpet on fire and you asking, why did you do that? And they say, well, he told me to do it. It doesn't make it right. It's not good behavior. It needs to be corrected, but there's nobody who's been willing to correct it up until now. So
now, there are some city councillors, some CRD people on the CRD who have been very good. Maybe you can...
So for a long time we've been hearing, from Vic Durman and from Graham Hill, who's the mayor of View Royal, Carol Hamilton, who's the mayor from Colwood, sometimes Niels Jensen, who's the mayor of Oak Bay, and I'm forgetting one. Of course, Barb Desjardins, the mayor of Esquimalt.
So
They've
they
been
are
talking
all
since.
on the CRD, and they are the ones who are the best on this issue from your point of view.
Yeah, there's 15 people that sit on the sewage committee, and there's 5 from Saanich, and let's take one away for Vic Durman. There's 4 from Victoria, and so you've got 8 out of 15 that have a majority right there that can just push anything forward they want. So no matter what the discussion is and how the things are reasoned, if those 2 groups decide this is going forward at all cost, they simply have this voting authority.
And are they?
Yes, they are. And
you mean, so Saanich and Victoria, their 8 reps on the Sewage Treatment Committee
yes.
are the ones that are making this happen.
Yeah. Now the thing is, the governance model at the CRD is broken. Okay, so Local Government Act Community Charter is used to set up a regional district, and then within the regional district they are allowed to organize themselves, and they have various committees. There's a committee for arts, and there's a committee for the water, and there's a committee for financial and corporate services, and they take the 24 or so directors and they spread them amongst these committees. And if you look at the committees, you'll see that there's no dominating vote from Saanich or Victoria until you get to the Sewage Committee. The Sewage Committee was based on the Water Commission model, where you had 5 from Saanich and 4 from Victoria, and then you had everybody else in the CRD, all these other directors. When they started dealing with the sewage project, they figured, it only affects these 7 municipalities, so we'll just cut off Metchosin and Salt Spring Island, and that left 15 people with Saanich and Victoria dominating, and what they say goes. That's not terribly democratic. It does represent the population, but it doesn't fit into any other model where you're quantizing the number of representatives that should exist based on a population, and it's given them this heavy hand.
Has any of them run a campaign that elect me and I want to have sewage treatment? See, the thing is, I don't remember that. If it happened, I just don't remember it ever happening.
The last municipal election was November of 2011, and being a Saanich resident, I went to the debates, and I was helping out with one of the campaigns, and so that encouraged me to go to more than just a few. And the topic was brought up several times by people in the audience and questions that were submitted. And every time it came up to the table to be addressed by the candidates, they just downplayed it as it's a done deal, it's a fait accompli, the train has left the station. But there's no mandate from the people for this, right? There's no support for this project as it's been proposed. And I don't see how it can really go forward. It's probably happened in the past, but I sense a rising sentiment here that people aren't going to stand for this.
Okay, what's going to happen in the next 6 months or so? Do you think, they have to build the plant someplace, and they haven't found a location yet, have they?
Well, if we look at the regulations again, right, there's a 2020 deadline that exists right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so before the province and the federal government harmonize their sewage regulations, which is something that happens, over time, vehicle regulations, if you
So right now it has to be finished by 2020.
Yeah, right. If you want to bring in a car from some other place, Transport Canada deals with it at a federal level, and then you want to license it, then there are provincial inspection and regulations you have to meet. So something like that has to happen for sewage treatment.
Yeah.
So there's a 2020 deadline that exists now. The province gave the CRD a 2016 deadline, which obviously can't be met. They're going to blow way by that. So they want to go back to the province, get another amendment to their management plan for liquid waste, and say, hey, we really want to get it built by 2018. That is opens up the negotiation a little bit, right? So even with that 2020 deadline and their proposed 2018 deadline for when they want to get this particular thing done, there's still a 2-year window to fix it. And nobody has really brought that out. Nobody's addressed it. The fact that there are 2 years to look at the problem again and make it better.
So you mean we can right now stop and wait for 2 years and we'll still be in good shape?
If you stopped it today and you got an agreement from the provincial minister of the environment to say, yeah, we need until 2020 to get this right, and you didn't even talk to the federal government, you'd still have 2 whole years, which, in politics, what is a week? It's a year, right?
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of time politically to deal with this, and to engage engineers, and to, come back. It would even be possible at this stage, before any bidding has happened, to open up another expression of interest and say, companies, how could we do this better? Come to us with your ideas, come to us with your innovation, and then we could actually rationalize that and decide whether it's worth doing.
So this whole thing is a little bit crazy. We can definitely do better. We can stop right now, as Richard has just told us. And please, folks, this is an important issue. We're looking at another $1 billion for a stupid project. Richard Atwell, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you all.
Pleasure.
Hello, welcome back to Citizens Forum, July 10th, the Walter and Jack Show. So Walter, what Richard was saying was very interesting, the whole sewage treatment issue. Let's move on to BC Hydro. Suddenly we're being told that there are huge rate increases on the way. And didn't we just have an election in which that was never mentioned?
Yeah, I thought that's what I understood.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, they have to raise rates, Jack. They don't have any options. I mean, if they keep giving everything away, somebody has to pay for it. The smart meter program costs so much money, Jack, all on the backs of the taxpayers, basically they have to find some place to get money. And with all these bad deals, with these run of the river contracts that they've signed, they're not getting any money out of that. So they have to jack up the rates in order to cover the deficits.
So would the Liberals have been elected, do you think, if they had said prior to the election, we have screwed this up so badly that you're going to get a 30% hydroelectric rate increase 2 months after this election? Do you think they would have been elected if they
No.
would have
The thing is that the people's power hydro bills are all over the place, Jack. There's bills that are coming in there they're being wildly overcharged.
And Hydro says it's your problem, and basically if you don't like it, they'll cut you off.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's amazing that a crown corporation, the kind of corporation that used to be our friend, is now, I mean, literally, there have been stories of people's rates tripling, quadrupling.
That's right.
And Hydro says it's your fault, or you're just using power, and if you don't like it, goodbye.
They're acting like thugs, aren't they?
Yeah.
And what the Liberal Party and the Liberal government seems to be acting like thugs too. They're the same entity in most
And when you get
places.
right down to it, the NDP is acting like thugs too, because they're not really critical of any of this. And when you get right down to it, the media is doing the same thing, because was the media asleep at the switch through the entire provincial election? Shouldn't that have been front page news day after day? Or is it suddenly, 2 months after the election, a huge surprise to anybody that this is happening? I mean, it's a surprise to me.
People don't run on platforms of meaningful platforms anymore. Like if you vote for me, I want to do A, B, C, and D. If you vote for me, this is what you're voting for, and I'm going to try to do this if I'm elected. People don't run on platforms like that anymore. It's all platitudes, vague assurances of they want to do this and that. And the real serious issues that are going to go on and happen anyway, like we were just talking about with the CRD sewage treatment plant, like who voted for that? It's just ridiculous that we're treated so poorly, and the public is treated just so poorly. There's just like, where's just something they have to deal with while they get on with their agenda?
Yeah, exactly. We are. That's right. Just why are you getting in our way, you stupid people
that's
of
right.
Canada? I wanted to say something else about the debt. Through the provincial election, Christy Clark drove around the province in a bus that said debt-free BC. That was emblazoned on the side of the bus. Now, the NDP knew, and the media knew, that in fact the real debt of BC under the Liberals for over 12 years went up from something like 37 to 40 billion, that's where it was, to about 150 billion. I mean, those are the real numbers, from 40 billion of total debt to 150 billion, and she's allowed to ride around on a bus telling everybody debt-free BC, and neither the NDP nor the media criticize her.
Well, the NDP were in a bad spot because they thought they were going to get elected. And they were going to continue on more or less with the same agenda the Liberals had. That's how they were going to get elected. They spent all that time assuring everyone that nothing much was going to change.
So they couldn't be critical then?
Yeah, now they can't be critical of it. They couldn't criticize any of that nonsense about the deficit. And you know this, and you said this on time and time again on this show, that the deficit was created by taxation cuts to the large corporations and the rich. That's why the province is in the hole. So, I mean, the side of the bus should have said reality free. I mean, it's just totally removed from reality. Now we have the situation where, I mean, I just don't know what's going to happen the next few years. I mean, what are they going to do? At some point, is the wheels just going to fall right off this whole thing? I mean, at some point, BC Hydro is going to go bankrupt. And at some point, the Liberal government, the books are going to be shown to be really been cooked.
Yeah. So that's that situation, mess number one. I'd like to talk a little bit about the university scam. People, when I went to university, it was 3 years to get a BA. Now it's 4 years. They've added on an extra year. When I went to university, I came out, as far as I can remember, without any debt. I mean, I was living at home. And you know, I had a summer job for 3 or 4 months, and that was it. You know, basically covered with some help from mom and dad, for sure. Now people are like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt. And what our society is doing, not us, but the people who run our society, they're making more and more jobs. They're making it mandatory to have a university degree to even get your foot in the front door to apply, when in reality there's absolutely no need to have a university degree to do the job. So it's almost like they're trying to create a divided society, you know, and the universities, I guess, are playing a big role in this. They love it. Hey, you want any job, you got to come and talk to us.
Well, you know, like Noam Chomsky, you know, professor of linguistics in the United States, he said that, you know, you go to university to learn how to be rich. So those at the very top who gets chosen to get into these plum jobs and such have to have internalized 100% the values and the aspirations of the elite.
Well, now, I mean, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people are going to university because they know in order to get into a lot of different jobs, you've got to have a degree. For a lot of jobs, you don't. That's for sure. And a lot of great jobs, you don't.
Yeah.
But bit by bit, they seem to be narrowing that field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a choice to make when I was get out of high school, and I became a tradesman. I'm an electrician. I worked in that trade my whole life. I haven't regretted it. And, you know, it was an issue in my family at the time, and I was decided not to go to university. But there was nothing there for me. And when I finally did go to university, and it took a couple of years taking courses at U of Vic, I was confirmed. It was confirmed that there wasn't really anything there for me that was going to bring me further in my education, understanding the world. Certainly, it wouldn't make me any more proficient in my trade. So I think there's a lot of really bright people that should be looking at other options other than driving themselves into such huge debt, and get into you know other trades and other professions that just simply don't require it.
Yeah. I know somebody who's studying to be a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. In order to get the license, I think, you now have to have 2 years of either community college or university, as well as well, why? You know, why? What a roadblock they're putting in place for people, because it's 2 years, and somehow you got to survive and pay for those 2 years of education. Well, is it education? You know, how do people do that? It's just a roadblock, and it's disgusting, I think.
Yeah.
Noise. You know, there was a good article in Focus magazine last month, I think, about noise. I don't know if you notice it, but it seems to be getting more and more out of control. You know, like, does nobody wash anything with a brush and some water anymore? Everybody's got to have a compressor going.
Yeah, it's like you can't just broom off your driveway. You have to have a 3,000 PSI power washer if they're blasting the heck out of it, right?
And then meanwhile, your neighbors got the, what are they called?
The weed whackers.
Weed whacker,
Yeah.
and the leaf blower. They got the leaf So you're going.
Well, in our neighborhood, it seems to happen that when you hear a lawnmower or something going, everybody gets out and gets their lawns mowed. We try to get them all mowed at the same time.
That's a good
to
idea.
get the racket all over with.
Yeah.
But it's true. There's a lot of noise pollution, a lot of problems with that.
I would like to see our provincial, provincial, and federal governments do something about that, if people want it. I mean, if everybody's happy with levels of noise, but I think if we can, at a certain cost, reduce noise levels, why not do it? Any last issue? We've only got a minute and a half left.
Well, I don't have any burning issues today. Something I did notice, I was just up at the Wandafuga Trail hiking, and you have to pay $10 a night per person to camp the Wandafuga Trail and all that. And the parking lot was 3/4 empty at Sombrio Beach. You go to Sombrio Beach, folks, you go camping there, it's breathtaking. And I think part of it is the charges that they're charging people.
$10
per person per night.
Wow, that's a lot.
If you have a group of 3 or 4 people, say 4 people, it's $40 a night to set up a couple of tents. And I think it's prohibitive, especially when the amount of revenue that they're gaining from that. I think people do, it's one more reason not to go camping in provincial campsites.
It's deliberate government policy to just do everything they can to force us into the malls and to watch their television.
Yeah.
Because, to go to the museum used to be free.
Yeah.
Now you got to pay a fortune to go to the museum. Why don't, it's...
Well, the thing is that we do pay taxes to pay for services and things, and this is one thing that I think we should be paying for through our taxes.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for watching the Walter and Jack Show. You're absolutely right, as always, I should have said.